Good afternoon and welcome to the People's Verdict. I'm Patrick Soko, and today we have an interesting topic of discussion. We are looking at, is Zambia's human rights profile improving or worsening? And to help me discuss this important topic of discussion, I have in the studio the Human Rights Commission spokesperson, Mr. Mwelwa Muleya. Welcome to the program, sir.
Thank you very much, Patrick, and greetings to the viewers and listeners.
Interesting. We thank you that you managed to make it to the program, and we hope you will continue to do so every time we call on you.
It's my pleasure. It's an opportunity for us. We never shy away from such opportunities.
Interesting. First of all, Mr. Muleya, just like I stated in my preamble, we are looking at this important issue pertaining to human rights in Zambia. This is also against the background that Zambia was also being reviewed pertaining to its human rights profile, how it has been performing. And we are also looking at a new report that for 2021-2022 pertaining to human rights issues and how Zambia is failing. And you are well positioned as the Human Rights Commission to give us various details of this context and to understand various issues pertaining to human rights and how the Commission is actually, what it is doing to address various human rights issues. So to get started with our program this afternoon, I want to start with a broad question, Mr. Muleya, where I want you to help us understand, first of all, what is the mandate of this Human Rights Commission in Zambia? And so that others who may be hearing this for the first time, they should be aware of what you do as we progress in our discussion.
Thank you very much. The Human Rights Commission is a national human rights institution. It's mandated under Article 230 of the Constitution of Zambia, but also under the Human Rights Commission Act, with a mandate of ensuring that the Bill of Rights is protected and upheld. Basically, we have a broad mandate of ensuring that we promote and protect human rights. How do we do that? We do that by receiving complaints of human rights violations and abuse. We investigate such cases, whether we have received them formally or we have just heard about that case in the public media or from anybody talking about it, or on our own evolution where we just know about it. We'll move in and investigate that case. After investigating, we produce reports to the victims of human rights violation or abuse and to the respondent, a person who's accused of having violated that right. We can also publish those findings, or in some cases we may not publish those findings in the best interest of the victim or for other factors under our professional consideration. We do also carry out research on human rights violations and abuse with a view of coming up with recommendation, policy reforms, direction in terms of how we can enhance the promotion and protection of human rights. We provide free legal services on human rights. The Human Rights Commission doesn't charge for its services, so we provide free legal services to victims of human rights violations and advise them on how to go about. And also, we do provide training, education, and the information relating to human rights. So we build the capacities of the general citizens in terms of understanding and appreciating their rights, because it's only when they understand and appreciate their rights so that they can claim their rights. We also provide capacity building to duty bearers. These are the people who are responsible, state actors, who are responsible for ensuring that human rights are respected, fulfilled, and are protected, so that they have the capacity, understanding their limits in terms of exercising the authority, that they have to operate within the rule of law, with respect to constitutionalism and the human rights. We do various other activities in the pursuit of promoting and protecting human rights, as we may be mandated, either also in collaboration with other institutions or individuals, regional and internationally. But our jurisdiction as Human Rights Commission is a national jurisdiction. We're an independent, autonomous institution We are not subject to the direction of any individual authority other than to the Constitution and the law that regulate our operations. So basically, this is a commission with very strong core values of independence, professionalism, integrity, non-partisans, and also professionalism and competence, because those are values which are relating to the function of the National Human Rights Institution as established by the UN under what we call the Paris Principles, relating to the establishment and functioning of a National Human Rights Institution. And to that effect, the Human Rights Commission of Zambia is accredited to the UN with an A status, meaning that we are fully compliant with the international standard of how a national human rights institution should be operating. The composition of diverse, commissioners from diverse backgrounds. We are non-partisan. There are no government officials as commissioners. That we are professional, we are independent, we are competent, we are able to deal with cases that are brought before us in relation to human rights standard. So that's in a nutshell, that's how the Human Rights Commission is. We are represented in all the 10 provinces as per requirement of the Constitution, but the Constitution also goes further that eventually, the Commission should progressively have offices in the districts. So that we are decentralized, our services are readily accessible to the majority citizen.
Interesting. There you have it. That's a preamble there by Mr. Mwelwa Muleya, giving us the background and what the Human Rights Commission is all about. Our dear viewers, in case you are just joining us, you have not missed much. We were just getting started with our guest discussing human rights issues in Zambia. And in case you want to join the conversation later on, you can do so or leave us a message on our social media platforms. Remember that we always stream live The People's Verdict on our Facebook page. You can also do the same on our YouTube channel, and you'll be able to get this program live. Remember to always like and share our page so that, and also remember to click that notification button so that you can be notified every time this program goes live. Now, going on with our program in studio, let's look at this aspect, Mr. Muleya. How frequent are you being engaged by members of the general public? Are the people appreciating your role, especially pertaining to human rights governance?
The Human Rights Commission's offices are like a health service facility where patients on a daily basis, they're always at the health facility. That's how frequently the Human Rights Commission is busy attending to issues of human rights violation, abuses. There are a wide range of cases which we do countrywide. Countrywide, thousands and thousands of cases that we do. So the Human Rights Commission is, greatly appreciated. Greatly appreciated by people who are vulnerable, who cannot even afford to get a lawyer. In this country, legal services are very expensive. And sometimes, we are taken aback sometimes when you see, when there's few cases of individuals who are able to have published in the media. They are able to spin around their story, their issues of Human Rights Commission not attending to the issue because they've got a platform on which to complain and so forth. The Human Rights Commission, if the people who are being attended to by the Human Rights Commission, all of them had access to the media, you would have seen how much appreciated the Human Rights Commission is, because we've got very vulnerable people. Some of them, they're not even on Facebook. They can't even have a smartphone. But the only, point of recourse, the institution they look out for, is the Human Rights Commission, which they can reach out, even when they don't have talk time on their phone, they will phone our 8181 at toll-free line, distress calls, and the Human Rights Commission. Of course, we've got limited capacity in terms of numbers to reach out to everyone. Okay, like any other public service institution, we cannot at every given time be able to timely address all the human rights complaints that we receive. But in terms of the demand that we receive, that shows that there's a lot of confidence in the Human Rights Commission that members of the public trust and believe, because they've heard and others have experienced that we seek redress for vulnerable people whose rights have been violated or they've been abused in terms of their rights.
Interesting. Now, we have received recent concerns, especially from the political movement, where the recent case in point is where former Zambia's ambassador to Ethiopia, Emmanuel Mwamba, claims that he was assaulted by the police. And also, he has been speaking on various platforms, like you earlier alluded to. Others have a platform and they would be able to talk about these issues. Now, you also pointed to the fact that there is a new report that has been released by the U.S. Department of Justice, and it talks about issues pertaining to police brutality, extrajudicial killings still prevalent. How is the Commission, for example, interpret these issues, and where do you come in this discussion?
Well, I think it's very important for most of the people to read for themselves. Yes, so that the reports are not misinterpreted. The way they are being, we don't take a political perception to such reports. The U.S. Produces a state report, a human rights state report every year. Every year they produce those reports, and they highlight certain cases. And 2022 was not an exception. They also produced a report. Now, where issues are being taken out of context, that's when now you bring about misrepresentation. So as a Human Rights Commission, we really don't want to delve into those particular issues. Yes, there's a report. It has always been. They've always published the report, and the recent report is not the most damning report on Zambia. It acknowledges the positive strides which Zambia has taken where human rights violations have occurred. But some people will select and then leave out the positive aspects. What is important in human rights discourse is that when human rights are violated, there should be steps taken to either punish the perpetrators or compensate the victims. What actions are being taken? And the report, when you read in totality, it will show you that Zambia has started now trying to end impunity by acting on allegation of human rights violations. So the bottom line is that human rights violations or abuses will always be there. Okay? It will be utopia or living in an imaginary state where everything is perfect in the world. Otherwise, there would have been no law enforcement, there would have been no Human Rights Commission, there would have been no government to maintain law and order in an utopian state. The human rights violations will always be there. What matters is the extent, the scale, and the measures that are being taken to ensure that the human rights violations are kept, are prevented, and the perpetrators are punished, victims are compensated accordingly. Everywhere in the world, that's how it is. You will never find a country where there can never be a single human rights violation. When you read that report, you will find that when I say extrajudicial killings, so when people are presenting it, it's like there's mass extrajudicial killing.
Exactly.
Yes.
But what is the case?
They are citing one or two cases which happened. One of them is the Kateshi Coffee Plantation, where a worker was shot dead by police. During the protest, the workers were protesting for non-payment of their dues. And the Human Rights Commission has been on ground investigating such cases. We have even followed to ensure that the families of that deceased employee are compensated. And 2 months ago, the company compensated the family of the deceased family. So we don't go about just talking. We seek redress. We work on the ground, sometimes in the background, because we don't want to jeopardize our work. to ensure that our relationship with even those accused, they've also their rights, but also that there is that mediation role we have. In fact, that's one of our mandate, to mediate, to negotiate, to reconcile, between the parties, so that we know that if we are seeking civil route, can you agree, compensate? The criminal part is another one. You can pursue criminal charges against the perpetrator, but others would prefer that we need to be compensated. They will follow the civil route. And some people, they know that going to court sometimes is tedious, it's expensive, takes years. And they would say, look, I can't be tormented having lost this person, and again, he should be spending money, exorbitant fees with the lawyers and so forth. Can I be compensated? But life, of course, you know that it cannot be restored. But criminal charges can still be preferred by the state. It has a responsibility to ensure that human rights are protected. And that should be the case.
Interesting. Now, is that a point where you give us that categorical perspective, where the question we are asking in line with today's topic, Mr. Muleya, is Zambia's human rights profile improving or worsening?
Well, the way I'll answer that one is that definitely the profile is increasing. Notwithstanding the perceptions which have come in the recent weeks, few weeks, and because of a lot of political rabble-rousing, I call it political rabble-rousing. Yes.
Why do you say so?
Where everything is like, if you are not, you are in Osaka, you would think something has crumbled, and everything, there's widespread human rights violations, there are abductions, there are torture, acts of torture taking place, and so forth. The human rights violations, we are not saying that they've ended, they are still happening, but to a large extent, there is enormous. Just the public order that has been restored, that conducive, environment which exists for the promotion and protection of human rights must be appreciated. Where lawlessness has been curbed to a large extent, where it was almost like a failed state. In a failed state, that's where you find the people without the mandate of the people have usurped the powers of law enforcement in the country. The way it was happening in the recent past, where cadres would be the law unto themselves, they can stop on the road, they can beat you at the market or bus stations, they can even slap a law enforcement officer at their police station. So that environment no longer exists. It means then that largely the rights and freedoms of the people have been restored in that environment. And people who have no issues, who are not expected or suspected to have committed a crime, are freely moving about. They are freely, you can express yourself unless you breach the law. That is the situation. There are fundamental issues from a human rights point of view, yes. The death penalty has been abolished. The defamation of the president has been abolished. The government is now expanding economic, social, and cultural rights. And that's what we are demanding. That it should not be like at the behest of a government, benevolent government, that we are providing these economic, social, and cultural rights, such as free education. No. They should include those in the Bill of Rights, so that they are protected and provided as a matter of right. So those are the shortcomings which we are saying. Yes, there's progress that is being made, but we need to do more. We also need to have a law that criminalizes torture in Zambia. That we are very strong on it. Zambia has ratified the Convention Against Torture. Zambia's constitution under Article 15 prohibits torture. But that act in the constitution cannot be operationalized. The courts can just lament and talk about this is torture. When it comes to punishing the perpetrators, they only rely on the law that is written, which defines that offense and which prescribes penalties for that offense. So they will go to assault and battery, not torture, which is a higher threshold which we need to enact as a country. We need to ensure that the Public Order Act is repealed. That is a colonial law, 1955. And we cannot continue using that piece of legislation, because rights to freedom of association and assembly, they are lifeblood of a democracy. So we need to move on that, to continuously amend the laws, but also ensure that there's behavioral change in terms of law enforcement, and where acts of transgression in relation to human rights violation occur, there should be consequences.
While the Commission and other rights actors are celebrating the removal of the death penalty in the Zambian statutes, we understand that this issue is not conclusively dealt with, because other registrations still provide for that. Although there has been concern, Mr. Muleya, that removing the death penalty, others are of the view that Zambia, we may see an escalation of crime, in that people may think that there's no death penalty, so it's okay, I can go and serve in prisons, and others who feel that the offended, for instance, they will be able to take revenge against this person. For example, if they are out of police custody and they say, no, you killed our relative, we also exact revenge against you. So those are some of the things that people we have hosted on this platform have raised, Mr. Muleya. But how do we strike a balance on that?
Exactly, and everything is possible with a human being, but the issue is that with the death penalty, you never have consensus. People have divergent views, opposite views, strong views, and justifiable views from both sides. But the truth is that evidence worldwide has shown that the maintenance of death penalty has never deterred commission of crime. Criminals don't think of the consequences as they plan to go and steal using guns, or when you kill somebody. It has opened our mind as Human Rights Commission, very privileged, to visit people who were on death row at that time in Mukoveko. Men and women of high integrity, most of them. Some of them pastors. And the people would be surprised that we don't know what happened on that day. He was slow to anger. We've never seen him getting annoyed. But he hit somebody, pushed somebody, that person died. This was a professional person, just a spur of the moment, something happened. This is a wife who had been abused for some time and everything. On that particular day, she just decides to retaliate. Her husband dies. Those are things. So you don't plan when you commit those cases which attract death penalty, as it were, when there was death penalty. People don't plan. There are circumstances which happen where someone, you really even shocked yourself. You'll be the first one even where what has happened. But once somebody has died, that is the end. You can't restore someone.
But of things, those who plan to say, let me go and rob this person, and in the process of robbing someone, they end up killing people.
You don't plan. You don't make laws selectively thinking of people who may be doing that. You make a law that will protect everyone. The other point, you go there, you find that vulnerable people who cannot hire expensive lawyers, who can dedicate their time to even, defend you, even at the time of being arrested, where even you are properly charged with the offense. They don't have that capacity. They are only depending on legal aid services. Legal aid services, these are government services, they are overwhelmed, because the majority of people, as a matter of fact, in this country, who might find themselves in such cases, are vulnerable. Their education levels are very low. They are coming from not well-to-do families. They can't afford to pay, not even for transport, for a lawyer, for anything. So those are the people who end up themselves, because they are not adequately represented. They find themselves being convicted. Other than that, there can be miscarriage of justice. There can be miscarriage of justice. By the time you discover that this person was actually framed, someone is already been serving there. Now, in an event that there's a death penalty, someone will have already been executed. How do you can't restore life? So there are a lot of factors that have been taken in place, but also that life is sacred. Life is sacred. It's a fundamental human right that the state cannot reduce itself to a level of a criminal, that criminal who takes away the lives of another person. So life should not be taken away by an individual or by an institution or by anyone in authority.
Yeah, but was that necessary also when you talk about the death penalty, considering the fact that Zambia has been an abortionist state, in that successive heads of states haven't been committing people to hang, to be killed, and we've seen that even that record is also part of Zambia's human rights profile, as also documented by the European Union, who have been also commending Zambia for being an abortionist state. Wouldn't it have been just okay if we had presidents who do not make sure that we don't hang someone?
Abolitionist state for more than 25 years, the right time to get rid of the law, which was not being applied. At international standard, when a country has not executed anyone or implemented death penalty for a period of 10 years, that state becomes a de facto abolitionist country. Now, let me say that in a democracy, we rely on the rule of law and not the rule of man. So we should not rely on the goodwill of individuals, and we don't assume that we will continue having presidents who are going to refrain from using that law. You know, in a democracy, anyone can be a leader, and we don't want to get in the situation where now that person comes in and start executing people, and the international community and everyone will be shocked as what has become of this country, which was a death penalty abolitionist country. They were resumed executions. That would be disastrous for the country. And that's why I say in a government, in a democracy, the rule of law means that people should be regulated by laws, not what they feel or what they think should be right or should not be, it's not right.
You mentioned another interesting aspect, the issue pertaining to torture, Mr. Muleya. Now, in Zambian prisons or police cells especially, every time, especially in communities where there are vulnerable citizens, like you were mentioning, those who cannot even afford a lawyer, those who don't know that police bond is for free, that you can access bail through the court without paying. When they're taken to police, their first greeting is slaps. That amounts to torture. And while they're in custody, the treatment and the condition of these prisons or these police cells are also tantamount to torture. But how do we change such a narrative as a country?
Definitely. In terms of, start with the infrastructure point of view, the Human Rights Commission has been instrumental in ensuring that the conditions in which inmates or suspected people are kept are habitable, really suitable for human habitation. And that's why we've been producing what we used to call prisons reports, prisons when the correctional facilities were still prisons, where we are documenting those situations, making recommendations to authorities. Over the years, the government has been modernizing these correctional facilities, providing water supply and sanitation services. They've been, providing now bunker beds. You go there, find there are bunker beds in some areas. There are mattresses. They are watching even TV. We follow what we call Mandela rules. These are UN standard minimum rules for treatment of prisoners. They were enacted in 1955 by the UN, but in 2015 they were renamed Nelson Mandela rules in honor of the former South African president. They provide standards on how inmates should be kept, how should be treated in a humane manner. But also acts of law, we know that sometimes that's why we need a law that defines, domesticates torture, criminalizes torture, because it's going to define what constitutes torture, what constitutes inhumane or degrading treatment. So, because of lack of guidance in this, everyone who has been pushed will claim torture. Okay, so there are differences at the human life. The torture has got a different standard. That when you're talking about it, it's a very serious issue. If you are manhandled and this, you can't say I've been tortured. But that's what is happening with this now. And I've been tortured, I've done this and that. So we need that law, which is going to provide guidance to law enforcement officers or actors in the criminal justice system, including to the victims, so that they know when they're talking about, are they really talking about torture? Is it inhumane or degrading treatment? If you have been, dehumanized, the manner in which you are being handled is embarrassing, degrading because of your own status. That does not amount to. So we need all those things. But the issue is that torture, inhuman or degrading treatment, is prohibited at all times, in all times, under no circumstances. Should someone be tortured or treated in a cruel, inhumane, or degrading manner? That is international standard law. There are no circumstances under which a human being should be tortured, treated in a cruel manner. We call it is a compelling law, just cogen. It's a part of international customary law. Whether a country has ratified those instruments, where Zambia has ratified anyway, but even if Zambia had not ratified the UN Convention, acts of torture are prohibited internationally as part of international customary law. As a practice, no country is allowed to torture citizens or individuals, whether they are not their own citizen and so forth. Whether there is a state of emergency, whether there is a political instability, that is a right which is protected in its absolute form. The right to life, there are circumstances when it can be taken away legitimately. And there are exceptions written under international human rights law and also under our own constitution. There's exceptions, what we call derogations or restrictions to the enjoyment of that right, but not the protection against torture.
Now, interesting. Let's also look at an overall question where what do we need to do to deal with a rights violation in Zambia effectively?
What the Human Rights Commission has been demanding is that can we put in place appropriate laws that are going to guide everyone in the criminal justice system, that the law enforcement officers, the National Prosecution Authority, the judiciary, the legal aid board, the Zambia Correctional Service, and various other institutions, even the Human Rights Commission, to ensure that human rights are adequately protected. When we don't have laws, we are just, following perceptions and allegations and complaints, but then we cannot rely on the strong laws and strong institutions. Then we have a challenge. So we need strong institutions, strong laws. We need behavioral change. That we need people are committed to promoting human rights and respecting human rights, but also that those who exercise power, they should realize that there's a way in which a human being should be treated, and that human being, whether they've committed a crime or not, it will be treated within the confines of the law. That's why there are laws which guide how each offense should be dealt with. If you commit a certain offense, there is a manner in which you should be treated, even in terms of punishment, the minimum or the maximum punishment you should receive. And that law enforcement officers, by their own mandate, they are not empowered to punish a suspect. They are not empowered to punish a suspect or an accused person. That power is reserved for the courts of law. Only the courts of law are empowered to punish the suspect, and also in accordance with the law. The courts of law will not punish anyone where there is no law that prescribes that what we have done is a punishment and the penalty for that is this. They will not, because they are there to interpret the law. That's what they use. The police officers are there to enforce the law, and they should not, violate the law by violating the rights of suspects during arresting people. However, arresting suspects who are reasonably suspected to have committed an offense which is under unwritten law in Zambia, is a legitimate function of law enforcement. It's not a violation of human rights to arrest a suspect. What becomes a violation is the manner of arresting. If you arrest somebody, you beat that somebody, or you take that somebody, or detain somebody without charging them beyond a prescribed period of time, you don't release them on bond, and also you don't take them to court because people have the right to a fair and speed trial. They are presumed innocent until pleaded or proven guilty by the courts of law.
A follow-up on that one, Mr. Muleya. There's been that concern from those who come from the opposition political parties that they are taken into police cell without being charged. Then they'll probably hear of the charges the following day or two.
Well, I think there are a lot of cases which are coming now, and that's why we are saying Zambia is a democracy. Zambia human rights record is really, really improving. There are cases which are coming where people, if they are arrested, they are not charged. People have taken cases to court, and a number of them have been compensated for that. And that's why, as Human Rights Commission have been involved for the past, 6 months this year, we've been involved in countrywide, engagement with various stakeholders and the law enforcement officers, including on human rights and the law enforcement. And those are issues we're bringing out. So it's a matter, if you have that case, people have at liberty to sue for false imprisonment. Yeah. But in some cases, people find that they've been charged. When they tell you, check there in the occurrence books and the records, you find people arrested, they are told of the offense they committed, they were charged and released. But where we see now a disconnect is that there's a delay in taking some cases to the courts of law. And I think people now should understand that instead of just blaming the law enforcement officers or agencies such as the police, they should know that and appreciate the fact that the police are no longer prosecuting cases in court. That function has shifted to the National Prosecution Authority. So what they do when the police have arrested, the docket has been done with evidence, they push it forward it to the National Prosecution Authority for the Director of Public Prosecution to grant consent to prosecute. And not for the police to prosecute, they'll go there as witness, but the National Prosecution Authority. So that's what we are trying to find out. What is delaying, prosecution of cases and that. But we've been doing that over the years. We've understood now the criminal procedure system. One, you find that, the judiciary also is overwhelmed. So there's what we call cause listing, to put you when you are going to appear in a court. There's only so much one judge or magistrate can take in terms of cases. For instance, criminal cases, sessions in this country, they will have only maybe 6 criminal sessions each judge in a year. And in those criminal sessions, they will have a maximum of 20 cases to deal with. Okay? And those cases, it doesn't mean that at every session you have new cases. You have even those which you are adjourned during the previous session. Maybe you had 11 adjourned from a previous session. Only 9 new ones. Why? Because sometimes even you find that the adjournments are at the instance of the lawyers representing the suspects.
But my question would be, why should a suspect pay for the inefficiencies of the system?
I was actually coming to the point that sometimes you find that the adjournments are at the instance of the lawyer representing the same suspect. Yes.
That is also understood.
That's the problem.
But again, we see like even the president expressed concern to say these adjournments, while the adjournments are ongoing, people in these facilities are crowded. And the president challenged the commission and the magistrates, the judges to be going to prisons so that they see the conditions of these people, especially those who are remandees.
Exactly.
Because the situation is quite bad.
It is bad, and in that this is a serious issue, and that's why you need to support these institutions adequately. Adequately. The court will not, it's also respect the rights of an accused person. If a lawyer says, no, I'm adjourning, or my client now is not fit to stand trial. And we know the others actually go and get a sick note or do this and that. The court will really reprimand, can we are delaying this case, can we move on? But they will grant that right to a suspect. That also contributes to delaying the cases. But there are also those who are itching to be cause listed, to appear. But unfortunately, you find they are not on that list. And that's why, as a Human Rights Commission, we've been concerned with the most vocal people and the media, that when a prominent person, because of their social, political, religious status, finds themselves in, it will be so. Why are they not going to court? They've been in this thing. Now you find that as Human Rights Commission on the ground, we know the situation, that look here, this person on whom they are saying should appear is maybe number 60 in the line. Now you want that person, because he is or she is a politician, to jump the queue, to be tried first before others who have been waiting for longer than that person. That is discrimination. So we don't usually support that. We support the system of what we call FIFO, first in, first out. Ideally, that's how the criminal justice system, the fair system, should operate. But because of pressure, people are represented by powerful lawyers. When a lawyer speaks, those powerful, we know them now, they are on our finger, just speaks the whole day. It will be something trending on social media, on conventional media, because someone has spoken. Without due regard for others who are also equally waiting to access justice.
But that's where the unfairness comes in, where we are talking about also the legal aid board. Yeah. Because you also clearly stated that we have two categories of citizens: those who are able to afford legal representation, and those who can only depend on the state through the legal aid board. Now you discover that, Mr. Muleya, these people, they only spend 24 hours in prison, in police cells, because the following day they'll manage to file for post bond and provide everything that is needed. Even if it is a bond that requires them to pay 100,000, 200,000, they'll still pay. Yeah. But this other person, they won't manage. Even if they go there, they are charged 50,000. They'll rather stay inside. Are you seeing also the disparities? Yeah. But how do we amend these archaic systems? Because President Ichilema is on record, Mr. Muleya, that he wants cases to be ending, especially pertaining to corruption, ending within 3 months.
Yes. We've been seeing a lot, we've been advocating a human rights institution, and that's why people must understand that our role is just not to condemn, just talk anyhow without addressing issues in a substantive manner. We have been engaging, and we have seen that now. Even those cases where we find people are not accessing justice, we've been getting those cases, push them through the judiciary. We engage the Chief Justice, the judiciary through the Chief Justice. And those are issues we don't say, no, we have done this today, we are going to do. No, we are resolving issues. We don't want to jeopardize, people's interests, because we know that if we start talking, someone will say, okay, you are speaking, also let's do our mandate. Can you also do your mandate? But we are working in a cordial manner as state institutions to ensure that the rights of people are protected. Now, what we need to do to continuously enhance the capacities of these institutions. We have seen now judges, a number of judges are being appointed. Okay, a number of them recently have been appointed, and our hope is that these judges who are being appointed, some of them will be sent to the provincial centers. Lusaka is not Zambia. So we need these services to be decentralized, not judges to be going just for circuit sessions where they just go there for a few days in that area, they move on and so. We want to be, the system should be decentralized. The way they are trying to do now, they are decentralizing National Prosecution Authority, legal aid is being decentralized, the social welfare department is a very critical department when it talks about the rights of the children. It's being decentralized, and all this so that the services now will be spreading out closer to the people. So a lot is being done. The magistrates are being trained in the judiciary. They have also a program of trying to reform, train, the judges, the magistrates. But also we need facilities. We need the infrastructure. We don't want, no, we need the judges to be sharing the rooms because they are waiting for that session to be out. There should be more infrastructure constructed. Libraries. The judges should be, exposed to modern laws, and they should study properly and so forth. They need to be, the police, the law enforcement officers, they should be empowered with modern training, modern investigative skills and also facilities, so that they don't now resort to this unlawful means of extracting evidence from suspects. They need to be trained in modern investigative skills, and also facilities and equipment must be provided to law enforcement officers, that they should be able to get evidence of a wrongdoing or someone who may have participated in a criminal offense without necessarily beating them up. They don't need to start beating out evidence out of suspects. But to do that, you need to also invest in training, capacity building, in equipment, modern equipment, and so forth. So there's a lot that needs to be done, in as much as we're talking about this kind of behavior, which has been historical. Anyway, the training of law enforcement officers has been to beat. Yeah.
Interesting. Well, our dear viewers, you are watching The People's Verdict with me, Patrick Soko, and I am joined by Mr. Muleya, the Human Rights Commission spokesperson, and we have discussed quite a number of issues on the program, interesting issues coming from Mr. Muleya's perspective, and based on the follow-ups that we are making, based on the concerns that the citizens have been raising pertaining to Zambia's human rights profile. Now, interesting enough, we also look at another aspect, which is the new children's code bill criminalizes sexual abuse or sexual exploitation of children in commercial sex, and exposing children to obscene or pornographic material. How is this country performing as regards to protecting children from obscene materials, considering the advent of digital connectivity? Mr. Muleya, this is another challenge that we have. Wow, how is the Human Rights Commission also looking at that? Because just a while ago you were just explaining to me that in the advent of the change in technology, the change in societal norms, how these judges, magistrates adjusting, law enforcement wings adjusting, even us as the media now. You as the commission also, how are you positioning yourselves to make sure that we also protect the children in the advent of digital connectivity?
Digital connectivity. And broadly speaking, let me talk about these laws, new laws which are coming, the Children's Code Act. When new laws come, and the Human Rights Commission, what we do ourselves, we self-educate. We educate ourselves, we empower ourselves, we read, we study. And the first thing we did now, over the past few months, we've been rolling out the capacity building of stakeholders on the Children's Code Act. Because you can have a law, then people don't understand it. So we've been going around, empowering the people with that knowledge. We've been empowering, law enforcement officers, the legal aid, the judiciary, we met magistrates in some areas, and various other, Zambia Correctional Service, in understanding that. In some cases, we've been getting now to engage with the judiciary. We could see in a facility, you find a child has been sentenced to a correctional facility when it's not supposed to be under the new law. So you will see that the disparity that now, even within the judiciary, the officers who have not really come to terms with that law, they haven't understood. So we've been engaging them to reverse their decision, because it's illegal under the Children's Code Act. They are supposed to be taken to reformatory schools or to confirmed, approved school. And also when the suspected, the children who have come in contact or conflict with the law, they are not supposed to be, detention is supposed to be the last resort. And if a child is detained, at all cost, it should not be for more than 48 hours. That's what the code says. But also they're supposed to be kept in places of safety, or that's what we call places of safety. So those places of safety, they are under the Ministry of Community Development and Social Welfare. So the Social Welfare Department, they are the ones who have those places of safety where they keep those victims, children, sometimes women. Now, those facilities are not enough. They are not adequate in some areas. They don't exist. And that's why we talk about when there's a law, there must be accompanying facilities to ensure that that law is implemented. At the moment, as Human Rights Commission, we are advocating for establishment of more reformatory schools for children. You cannot have only one Katombora reformatory school in Kazungula, one in the whole country. You are arrested from Chilubi, a child has to be taken to that place. Now, sometimes fewer, when they look at the logistics involved to just transfer that child for that. They will wait, maybe another case will come, so that at least maybe there are five, we can reasonably do that. Meanwhile, that child now is kept in a facility in which they are not supposed to be because of those challenges. We have these approved school, very few. Nsakwe in Copper Belt, Nakambala in Mazabuka. The whole country. How logistically when you look at to manage the children and so you find that the children are being detained in facilities in which they are not supposed to be and so forth. But there is progress. We should acknowledge that this is a fundamental move to have the Children's Code Act, because now it has rationalized, streamlined the legal framework of dealing with the rights of the children. What we need to do now is improve understanding, to improve the capacity of various stakeholders by adequately empowering them with facilities, knowledge, and also the needed resources. Digital era is very challenging for most parents, even for government. That's why these cyber-related crimes are very difficult to manage, even for government. But even for parents, even law enforcement officers, to deal with children, parents sometimes, the children are more sophisticated when it comes to accessing these digital facilities than parents. They know where to get to be exposed to that. But we need to continuously ensuring that the parents do not allow access to children to access, materials which are, injurious to their well-being, because that's where we get issues of child trafficking, child abuse, because people, they are no pedophiles, those people who stalk children on using those gadgets. They'll be, courting the child. We don't know what they are chatting with someone on this social media. You are sleeping the whole night. The child is just on phone, social media. That parents should be responsible. And that's why the Code Act it provides, the states, the children also have responsibilities. So there is guardians must have, parents must have responsibilities, guardians, and anyone who has parental responsibility. These are three. You can either be a parent or a guardian, or you can assume parental responsibility. It doesn't mean that you must be the father or the mother yourself to that child. You can assume parental responsibility, providing guidance to someone who may not be your biological child lawfully, and ensure that you protect them from any form of abuse. But also, the abuse of children sometimes is done by the closest members of the family. The people are placed with the responsibility of looking after them.
Now, before you answer that one, Mr. Muleya, I want to read to you these statistics so that you should marry it with that. Because recently, the Young Women Christian Association, YWCA, recorded a total of 71 cases of sexual violence against children younger than the age of 18, out of whom 16 were abused by their fathers, 20 by their uncles, 13 by their grandfathers, and a remainder by the male family members. It seems that the problem is big, and what should we do?
Exactly, and that's
like you were explaining.
I didn't even know that that's where you are leading to, that you have that question, and basically that's where I was going, that sometimes people are placed with that responsibility of taking care of children. They end up abusing the children. And that becomes sometimes very difficult for the state to even know what is happening behind those closed doors. And that's where now we need, as family members, as individuals, we must be able to really be each other's keeper when the children are undergoing such kind of abuse and violations. The teachers, they have a responsibility to assess and know from the psychological point of view that this child may be undergoing some form of abuse, and should be able to bring the issues to the relevant authorities. Family members, the parents, they should be able to bring those issues to law enforcement officers. Sometimes because of the issues of economic factors, the poverty levels, some people may know what is happening, but someone who's doing that maybe is a breadwinner. They don't want to report, and they are withdrawing those cases. Sometimes behind the scenes, they are resolving those cases and so forth. But eventually, you are seeing that there are a lot of cases coming up as we are seeing those statistics. Sometimes statistics, they may not necessarily indicate an increase in the violations or abuse. They may, to the contrary, be a confirmation that there is effective means of fighting those abuses, which may have been happening for years, but now people have been empowered to expose, to speak out, to bring out those cases which were just buried behind the curtains in their homes. So that could be also an indication of that there's impact being made, that people are reporting cases of child abuse, regardless of the perpetrators, whether it's a father, there's an uncle, a brother. People now are reporting cases, are taking cases to court, and that is a positive development.
Now, interesting. Now, let me take you to this interesting question where, what is the Zambia's Human Rights Commission's stance pertaining to matters of the LGBTQ? It seems that the issue is becoming more pronounced day by the day, and there has been concerns. And is there a conflict between the Zambian Constitution and the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, Mr. Muleya? This is another issue.
Controversial issue. It's an issue which doesn't go away. It's an issue. Of course, I didn't anticipate that it would come on this program, but it's an issue which I know wherever we go, people will bring it out. Yeah, and we should not shy away from discussing it because it's a critical issue. Is there a conflict between Zambian laws and the Universal Declaration? There isn't, because the Universal Declaration doesn't, or any other human rights instrument, does not provide for specific rights as LGBTQ rights. There's no human rights instrument to that effect. What is the human rights of how you should treat a human being who commits an offense? Now, in Zambia, it's a criminal offense under the Penal Code. When you're talking about same-sex relationship, there are offenses, what they call offenses against the order of nature. If you look at the Penal Code from sections 155 to 157, there are offenses that if you are engaged in that as a man, as a woman, you allow anyone to have carnal knowledge with you against the order of nature, you go in for 14 years. No. If you facilitate those issues and so forth, it's 7 years. There are categories there. That's how you should be punished in Zambia. So it's a criminal offense in Zambia. So we should distinguish what is a human right and what is a criminal offense. Engaging in that, according to our laws, is a criminal offense. We were found in that, you are arrested. Now, that's where human rights issues come in. Just like when you are found committing adultery. There's a procedure. No one should say, you're committing adultery, can we kill this person? No. There's an offense. There's a way to deal with someone who engages in such a case. If you kill someone who commits adultery or commits any crime, or even if someone who has killed another person, you commit murder yourself. So the issue of human rights is that yes, people who engage in such things, they are criminally liable, However, they must be treated in accordance with the law. They have a right to life, don't kill them. They have a right to protection against torture, don't torture them. Don't treat them in a humane, degrading treatment manner. They have the right to freedom of association, to express themselves. They have a right to privacy. You don't just storm their houses and so forth. All those which relate to any human being. Those are right. But that does not mean that the Human Rights Commission supports LGBTQI. Just like when we condemn the torturing of a person, who has committed a criminal offense, doesn't mean that we support murderers. No, we don't support crimes, but how people found themselves in that situation are being treated.
Interesting. Well, that was Mr. Mwelwa Muleya explaining that issue pertaining to, which has been topical, especially pertaining to same-sex marriages, and Zambia's Human Rights Commission's position is what we're also getting here on the People's Verdict. Remember that we always ask the question on your behalf, our dear viewers, so that you can make that verdict, especially at the end of the day. And this is where we are coming towards the end of our conversation, and in case you're just joining us, because we started earlier and we have unpacked quite a number of issues. And now to just wind up our conversation, Mr. Muleya, I want to first of all get this one interesting cliche or term, which they say, justice delayed is justice denied. But in the Zambian context, is there hope that this would come to fruition?
There is hope. There is hope, but a lot needs to be done. It's the capacity issues we've been talking about. That there's inordinate, we mean extreme delay in the discharging of cases in some cases. And for various reasons, but also some cases are very complex. They would take that kind of period. But definitely the issues there that justice, the delivery of justice in Zambia delays. And there's no one single institution that can be blamed. We're talking about entire criminal justice system or justice delivery, sector, law enforcement, the legal aid and private lawyers, the National Prosecution Authority, the judiciary, and so forth. Various players, all of them, they play their roles and so forth. So that has an impact on the speed at which justice is delivered in this country. A lot needs to be done.
Let me get your concluding remarks.
Thank you very much. The Human Rights Commission really is committed to promoting and protecting human rights. We are here to execute the constitutional mandate without fear or favor. We do appreciate, the challenges individuals may be facing and various institutions may be facing. We need to have a lot of capacity in these institutions. We need government to provide leadership in terms of enacting appropriate laws that are going to protect the rights of everyone, regardless of their status. That way, we are going now to have a situation where when you're talking about the rule of law, respect for constitutionalism and human rights should prevail for everyone. But also we call for various stakeholders not to be selective when they come to speak about human rights. They should not influence institutions such as the Human Rights Commission to make wrong decisions in supporting specific individuals and cases at the expense of the majority or professionalism as it relates to discharging the constitutional mandate.
Thank you very much, Mr. Muleya, for finding time to be with us to discuss issues pertaining to human rights this afternoon.
Thanks very much. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. It is now the evening, and this is where we have to call it a day on the people's verdict. Today's topic of discussion has been, is Zambia's human rights profile improving or worsening? And we have been able to unpack various issues on the program with Mr. Muleya. We have spoken to various issues pertaining to police issues and the judiciary, among other key players who play an important role in as far as human rights issues are concerned. Equally, the media has a huge responsibility to make sure that it highlights issues pertaining to human rights, and that's why we continue to play our role to help you, our dear viewers, get the information from the experts that are able to provide you with the necessary information pertaining to human rights, and we'll continue to highlight these issues here on the People's Verdict. This is where we have to call it a day, but remember to also join us next week with another interesting episode of the People's Verdict. This has been Patrick Soko on Camnet TV, not just another channel.